Aimee Fuller.
Hello.
Thank you for doing this on like really short notice.
Oh,
And
no
I know
worries
you've
at
had
all.
like a hustling day, so you've been flying around around London.
That is the life of Aimee Fuller. You will learn to know.
Fast paced by sport, fast paced by nature, I guess.
Generally, everything is done at 100 miles an hour until I hit the yoga mat.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll get onto that. So, snowboarding. Let's talk about marathon running. Let's just do that. Let's talk about the fact that you've just a casual transition. The fact that you've just done 2 marathons this year, and we were just talking about how I'd done a marathon. Let's go through your first one that you did, because that's what is the one that's got the big notoriety, I think. And explain a little bit about it.
100%. So 2018, I competed in the Winter Olympics, and I've always wanted to do a marathon. It's always been at the back of my mind. And shortly after the games, April, I was stood on the London Marathon finish line with Tag Heuer. And I was standing there with canapes at hand. There was champagne flowing, and I was like, as much as this is nice, I would much rather be out on that field earning my champagne and my canapes. So I sort of joked with the marketing director of Tag Heuer and said, yeah, I'd like to run this next year. So it was a few months later, and she said to me, so Amy, do you want a place in the London Marathon? And I said, can I come back to you in 2 days? And can I do it with a +1? The +1 being my mum.
Oh, that's awesome.
So spoke with my mum, and she said, give me a couple of days to think about it. And we decided that if we were to ever endure a marathon, we'd go through the process together. She's got a dodgy knee, I've got dodgy feet from snowboarding. So we're like, right, let's put this to bed and tackle this together. It was January. It was a very cold, wet, rainy, miserable day at the end of the month, and I had just come back from Colorado, Japan, all very semi-exotic, cold locations. However, that had not permitted any time for me to train. So I was back here in London, and I was out for a run, hit the towpath, ended up in Richmond Park, posted a story on Instagram. Talk about the power of social media. And that story was seen by the Olympic Channel, and I posted, covered in mud, soaking wet, just run 10 miles in Richmond Park. A message came through shortly afterwards, and it said, hey Amy, see you're training for a marathon. Do you fancy doing another? My instant response was no. And she said, it's in North Korea. So 10 minutes later, we were on the phone. 6 weeks later, I was on a flight to Beijing.
Why had they chosen North Korea? Why had they chosen North Korea to begin with?
North Korea, because we were on our way to document the North Korean marathon and showcase the power of sport and how it can unify the most isolated places.
Wow. So that's something they were already planning on doing. Like they were already.
This is a documentary that was 3 years in the making. Oh. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. They were looking for an Olympic athlete that was capable to essentially front and run a marathon for a documentary.
Yeah. So you really struck it at the right time to be training for a marathon at that time, with that leading in.
Yeah, completely. So essentially, I had been putting in a bit of the groundwork, and yeah, there was 6 weeks to go. So it was a case of keeping the training going.
That was how long your training was, like 6 weeks?
Yeah, well, 6 weeks before it. I'd done it, like 1 or 2 big runs in January in the mountains before I did the big one here in London. I did 1:13.5 and an 8 and a 10 in amongst travels. So I was slowly increasing the mileage, and it was a case of, well, London Marathon is front and center frame of my mind, because for me that was the most important, to show up and be accountable and to experience that with my mum. However, there was this giant curveball thrown in the way 10 days before London, which was such a fantastic opportunity. So it became more about surviving the two and bulletproofing my body in the process to be able to endure 2 back-to-back when I have never, ever gone through anything like that in my life.
What was the longest you'd run before doing a marathon? I think when I did mine, I realised I'd only ever done 8K cricket. Was short sprints, and snowboarding's a powerful sport. You're a fast twitch fibre. So, what was the longest you'd done in your training? Can you think?
Yeah, I actually do remember this. So I've always enjoyed running. Again, like you said, sort of 5 to 10 Ks max. To sort of keep fit on the road, essentially, you know, when you're traveling from contest to contest, and you know, you want to find that balance between training, travel, and also accessibility, running something that is so accessible. So I highly value it in that sense. It's also great for building a strong cardio base, which is important in snowboarding, as we ride for long hours. However, it is a fast twitch fibre sport. So in terms of recovery, I've always done it just to keep that base ticking over. Again, 2014, after that Olympics, I did a little more running. The furthest I ran was 7 miles 2 weeks before I entered the Wings for Life World Run, which is a run where you essentially run until the chaser car catches you on a global scale. So it happens all around the world at the same time. So in America, it might be 4 a.m. in the morning. Here in the UK, luckily, it starts at like lunchtime. And I wanted to do well in that because I was against my peers, essentially. So I wanted to showcase the slight competitiveness that I have, that I had the stamina, or as I like to say, the minerals to keep going. And I actually ran 13.3 miles accidentally then, because I just didn't get caught. So I just kept going and going. However, that's the only time that I had ever run that sort of distance. And that was the furthest I'd ever gone. So that was 4 years prior to the marathon.
So you've done this training, you got out to North Korea. Like, I've not been to North Korea. I'm sure a lot of people have not been to North Korea. What's it like? North
Korea is very much like you see on the documentaries.
Right, okay.
Well, now you can watch our documentary, Running in North Korea, and make your own decision. But I really wanted to go there and see it for myself. That opportunity was presented to me, and poverty there is widespread. Everything is in order for the leader. Everything they do is for the leader. Their sport is essentially fairly well developed. It is like a factory system. Eat, sleep, repeat. But through this, they have success. And it really was evident there that the only way we could really connect with them on a global scale was through talking about sport, because that really is the only tool they have to communicate on a non-political level, is, you know, the Olympics, and they have had success at the Olympics. So in that way, it really did humanize one of the most strange and backward foreign places cut off that I've ever been.
That's actually a really true point. I'd never really thought of it, that the fact that you don't really see North Korea sort of in the worlds that we live in sport. It's kind of, they're there, but outside of political and sport, there's nothing really I can think of. North Korea. That's it, really.
I can safely say that you're not going to see a North Korean walking along the high street anywhere in the UK unless they are over for competition. One story actually our guide told us, which I found really fascinating and also really sad, is that the North Korean athletes are not treated well. When they travel, they are not treated well. So he used an example. They were in transit to the Commonwealth Games. They were competing in Glasgow. and they had a layover somewhere in Europe. I won't name the country. And people do not want the North Koreans in their country. So they gave them the shortest possible layover time. So then they were in and out of the country to get on the next flight to arrive in Glasgow. And that layover time was so short, and they said it happens all the time, like half an hour. So they literally have to sprint from flight to make the next flight. And one thing which I thought was really nice was he was called Lee, and he said he landed in Glasgow for the Commonwealth Games after his horrendous journey over, and he had no money. He had no foreign currency. And he asked someone where the hotel was, and a Glaswegian fellow picked him up, dropped him off, and he just raved about the, I think, openness and willingness of the Scottish, which is just amazing. He said he had a great time. He's like, Scotland is the best place I've ever been. I loved it there. The people were so friendly, and I think that's a testament to us as Brits. Is we don't always judge a book by its cover, and unfortunately these athletes are given that such a bad rap under the body of the politics of North Korea, but the athletes themselves, they're just there to compete.
They're just doing their thing, what they do.
Yeah, like we do. Turn up and get the job done, right?
Yeah. So what was the marathon? Didn't just have wasn't just you and everyone else being North Korean. There was foreigners in there. That's open to foreign.
Yeah, it's actually the biggest week in North Korean tourism. So I believe there were between 900 to 1,300 people over for the marathon. They put a time limit on the marathon of 4.5 hours the night before, which meant a lot of people
You
dropped.
didn't know that going into it?
Nope. That meant that the field size was cut in half, and a lot of people dropped down to the half marathon.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
It was an out and back marathon, so at 6.5 miles, you can imagine everyone turned, and then there were about 400 of us out on the streets for the remaining 26.2 miles. So
wow.
They were big, empty, lonely, and very straight roads. Did
you find anyone? Because you then ran the London Marathon later on. And I ran it as well, and you find people on the run, don't you? You kind of find people that are. You're like, I'm going to stay with that person. I'm going to be with them, and I hope I see them in 26 miles, sort of thing. Or you find someone that's around your pace, and it's like a bit of a social thing. Eventually, well, I'm saying social, but like you have that community sort of around you, I guess.
Yeah, you kind of get to recognise everyone. I definitely got that sense when I did London as well. You sort of find your pack, and you're like, oh, give them a nod, give them a smile, and then you'll drop back, but then they'll drop back, and you sort of constantly like it's like a friendly jostle between back and forwards, and you kind of like look at each other and you're like, hey, you good, like you say, there's that real sense of community. Whereas in North Korea it was more like, there is one person, I can see him in the distance, I'm gonna pick him off. Picked him off, he's gone, he stopped. There wasn't such a sense of community. However, I was really, really lucky and thankful within the first 10 minutes. Kind of me being me, I like started chatting to people, and I made friends with an Irish guy, and his name was Kieran. And I think if it wasn't for Kieran, I would have really, really struggled in those times of darkness where my feet felt like cement at 20 miles. And he had gels and all the proper kit, which I didn't have. I just turned up, and I think sometimes you're often better at blind going into those things, like kind of unaware of the hurdles you may come across, and then you just find them along your journey, which I certainly did. But when I look back at it, I'm just so thankful that, without sounding like super cliche, but the whole experience was a really positive one for me, because I am and was just so thankful that my body could actually carry me over that distance. Like, it's phenomenal. A marathon is so far. So yeah, big ups and respect to everyone who runs. It's an amazing tool, and yeah, we're so lucky to be able to move. So you've got to make the most of it.
And then no rest for the wicked, because then 10 days later you're doing the London Marathon.
Yeah, saying that, contradicting myself at like 20 miles, I was thinking, God, I've got to run. I've got to do this again in like 10 days.
You were already thinking forward. You were like, oh my God, I've actually got to run another one. Yeah, but then I was like,
I kept saying to myself, just forget about that and focus on the right here, right now. You know, you can put all the precautions and the things that you need to do in place. You've got 10 days, so just...
Was anything you did in particular that got you ready for that next race?
Yeah, actually, randomly, as soon as I finished the marathon, I'm not gonna lie, I felt pretty whack, like stomach up the left. But we all like went straight for lunch, and then I actually went and got in the sauna, because I was more worried about not being able to move well like the following day. And I find for me, like, the sauna is like the cheating way of finding that extra length in your muscles, especially when they've really endured something. So I actually just went and sat in the sauna. I drank loads of water and I just stretched in the sauna. And there was a strange swimming pool which I sort of plodded around in, but I really put it down to the heat in my muscles and finding that length again after they'd been through such a range.
There's a huge amount of detoxifying that goes on when you're in a sauna as well. So like that lactic acid that gets rid of, like, because it is that day after a marathon it's hard. If you've not done one, like, it is hard. It hits you like a train. So yeah, you've done well to get rid of that. So the documentary running in North Korea, that's on Olympic Channel right now, but maybe when this podcast goes out as well, it might not still be on there. So
no,
it will always be on there. Oh, awesome!
It's free to watch. You can literally go on Google, tap in "running in North Korea," and it will take you straight to the Olympic Channel. It's available in all of the languages,
definitely
all of the subtitles, and it's free to watch. So yeah, hit it up and let me know what you think. We've had some amazing feedback so far, and it really is a powerful insight
and
into
it's such
the
a
country.
Unique thing to do as well.
And also, like, you know, if you fancy running an obscure marathon,
that's the one.
It's there for the taking, that's for sure.
That's the one. Right, so let's go to actually snowboarding. So you're a professional snowboarder and there's not much snow going on in England. So how the hell did you were born in London, weren't you? Farnborough.
So Farnborough, Kent, so sort of Bromley.
Yeah.
I believe that's considered part of London these days.
Not many mountains around there.
There's not so many mountains, but there was a very good dry slope, Bromley Dry Ski Centre, shout out.
So is that how you got into it? That's where it started?
Started with skiing, age 4, motocross, age 4, combine the two. You've got, also gymnastics, age 10 to 12. You've got essentially the perfect combination of skill sets, reading lines and transitions in a track from motocross, and then gymnastics, air awareness, ability, stability and control that you learn through gymnastics. I then lived in the States for 3.5 years when I was 12 and lived in Virginia, and I went snowboarding with some friends from school. It was about an hour and a half away in Pennsylvania, and I absolutely fell in love with the process and spent the majority of my days at school dreaming about the next possibility to escape to Pennsylvania to go snowboarding for a day. So over the period of 3.5 years, I clocked up a few days here and there, and in 2003 I got noticed en route moving back to the UK, and that was by my first sponsor, Roxy. So 16 plus 12 will give you a clue how old I am, and that's how long I've been riding for Roxy. So it's pretty magic.
That's early doors that they've found you. And
it is and it isn't. You know, you've got 12-year-olds now doing back double 1260s. Wow. So times have changed for sure, and I was so thankful to have that opportunity. And it was at age 16 I then joined the GB junior team after my first Roxy camp. Managed to squidge through my A-levels, and as soon as I finished my A-levels I just pursued my dream, which was becoming a professional rider.
Was the Olympics on the radar like round 16?
No.
So with Roxy?
The Olympics wasn't really an option back then. Slopestyle got introduced into the 2014 Winter Olympics. So I finished school in 2009 and it was announced in 2012. So for me, the goal was just X Games and World Champs, and there's a huge tour outside of the Olympics within snowboarding, but I suppose you could say it's more American based. So my initial dream was to ride at the X Games, which I did. Was the first woman to land double in competition in 2012, and then I endured my first Olympics in 2014. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster. In 2014 there were 24 girls, and then in 2018 there were 32 girls, and the inclusion of big air. So the sport's growing and it's in a really, really exciting place.
So because there's not access to that sort of training in England, where are you training most of the time?
Abroad, you have to go abroad.
What's that like? The coming to and apart from, I imagine it's quite nice, like going out and.
Yeah, at the start, it's just amazing because the trips are few and far between, especially 16 to 18. So I was still at school, and then I went full time when I left school. And I would say it's only like the last few years it's definitely got harder. Juggling adult life, so to speak, bills and, rent and mortgages. And, it's, for me, it's been really important to have a base in the UK, to have that stability and to have that piece of serenity, because living out of a suitcase is not as glamorous as it sounds. But, oh man, I cannot even say how thankful I am for the doors snowboarding has opened and the places I've gone, like snowboarding in Australia. It's just crazy. Like, no one in my family's even been to Australia. So it was somewhere I never even thought I would have the opportunity to go. And I've been like 5 times. New Zealand, Japan, China. It's madness. It's crazy where sport can take you.
I was going to say that's the beauty. I think that's just the beauty of sport as well, isn't it? It's just so cool that you realise how grateful you are of being able to see the world when some people just don't even have that opportunity, and how far it can take you. I think do you feel like you ever took it for granted? I know there's probably moments where I think I did some points.
I think there was a phase, especially like in the tougher times of my career, when you're saddled through injury, which of course is a part of any professional athlete's career. You sort of going there and you get the job done, and it's kind of about surviving and battling through. For example, in the process of qualifying for the 2018 games, I actually had my best season to date in terms of like focus and mental application to the qualifying process. But I also had a really annoying injury. I had a grade 2 on my lateral ligament in my ankle, and I had 5 contests back to back, and they were really crucial for me, and I had to compete 2 weeks after the injury. I could walk, but I couldn't really put any force through it, and just the pressure of the tape alone like threw me into this like shock of like tears. I couldn't even control it. It was that really sharp pain, and that 6-week block for me was so crucial, and there was so much pressure on me to deliver that it wasn't about enjoying each country. It was about turning up and delivering. So you go through phases. We had like 5 contests in 5 different countries, and when you've got an injury or something like that, it's about survival. But then when there's a bit more of a break and you've got some training, it's something I do now and started to do once I'd sort of been through that intensive block, is to find the time to enjoy each country. So you've got a contest in northern China. Okay, I'm going to fly in a day and a half early. I'm going to acclimatise, and I'm going to go check out the Great Wall of China, because why not? Whereas when I was a bit younger, it was more a case of flying in, landing, going straight to the venue, competing and leaving. And
Blinkers are on.
You're but as you get a bit older, it's like, wow, like this is amazing. I'm here. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to do something I love. And, there's let's make the most of this because it's not going to last forever,
Yeah. It's the, so you did slopestyle and then big air, which is like big tricks.
Yeah.
And I met your coach, Rich Hussaini, so I know him locally, and he'd spoken about the sort of, you guys get it like addicted to these things because of the rush it gives you and the flow state that you get in as well. But that you don't just turn up for your first ever slope and you're hitting 30 feet in the air or plus and you're not, that's something that doesn't happen. You build it up over time. I kind of want to find out a little bit from it, if you can explain it, what it's like being up there in the air, twisting and...
Yeah, so I'd say, there's two ways you can look at it. You're either up there and you're nervous and you're clinging on to that positive mindset and that thought that you're going to get the trick done and you're going to land it right. Or you're up there and you're oozing with confidence and everything flows. It's like a puzzle and you piece it together as you go, but it's a puzzle that you don't have to think about because it kind of works.
Is that because of your training? So your training has been a part of putting that puzzle together?
Yeah, so like on the in run, okay, so I'll take you through a trick. We're going to do a cab double, which is the best trick that I can do. So you're riding in, I can visualize it now. My eyes are closed, but they're not. So I'm going in, I drop in, I'm going toes, heels, toes to flat base. And it's in that transition, and straight away if you've got it right or wrong. You're on the lip of the takeoff, and you wait, and then you pop. If you pop at the wrong time, it's a disaster.
So explain what a pop is.
Pop is the time at which you drive or accelerate your back foot through your snowboard to create that lift. So it's like the snap. Okay. It's the initiation process. And if you get the timing wrong, let's not even go there. It's a panic. It's everything that you don't think about, but it becomes all about survival and how you can get your feet back under you. So it's sheer panic.
That's if you're getting it wrong.
If you get it right and you get the pop right, it's like you're floating through the air. It's magic. You can see everything. Everything's almost like slow motion. You reach for the grab, you tweak it, which is our way of like introducing style. And it's like 1, 2, spot the ground, stomp. And it's like a well-oiled machine when it goes right.
I kind of feel like it's really sort of like I'm thinking like film stuff in my head where because when you watch it on TV, it's seconds you're in the air. Like
it's almost like their sounds. Like it's like pop, stomp.
Okay.
So it's like rhythmic in a sense. Like if you're on top of your game and you know how the puzzle fits together, it's almost like a beat, but it's not
timing.
Because I'm visual. So it's like pop, flip, stomp. So if even the in-run goes wrong and you go so you go too long on one edge.
Okay, gotcha.
You might have lost the speed because all of those are factors. The speed has to be right. If you're going too fast, you're going to go too far. If you're going too slow, you're not going to have the right height or distance, and then you can land on the deck, which would be like...
Yeah. So is that correctable, though? Like, can you correct that to... Or is competing in the Olympics when you're at the top and you're about to go, is it you've done all your training and you...
Oh, it can go tits up still.
You start and it goes tits up, but if you're just going there for that perfect ride and you get it and you nail it, or can you still win if you don't nail it? Does that make sense? So like if you get it wrong, can you correct it enough to do the trick well enough?
Yeah.
To do
Depends what the trick is.
Okay.
So there's ways at which we can eject, we call it, or you can tuck up, make yourself smaller to spin faster. at the level we're at, it's, it goes wrong probably like 10% of the time, like wrong. Whereas it goes right, the takeoff, 90% of the time. And there's minor tweaks that you would change to make it go right so you land. So essentially you want to be performing a run, which you can do easily, where you're in that flow state and you're essentially not really thinking about it. It's just a rhythm that you automatically do. But when it's a newer trick, so it's higher up in that skill set and you're tapping into this new realm, then obviously that's when things can go wrong because it's not been practiced. And it is one of those skills where practice is essential, because otherwise there's so many contributing factors like speed, the size of the jump, the conditions, whether it's icy or whether someone's gone before you and they've made a mark in the jump and you don't like it. So you want to, when you're competing, you want to be performing tricks that are, within that safe realm. And then on your second run, you can up the gears and go for something that's a little higher up in the bag of tricks.
And that flow that you're getting when you're up there, is it addictive? Like, is it?
The landing's addictive. That's
really?
What's addictive. It's like,
because you got it right.
Boom! And it, like you come down and it's still like quite a heavy impact, but it's like an impact where you're like, boom, I'm a boss. Like when it goes right, you're
got
like,
it right.
Yes. It's so good. It's so good. And especially when you land like with equal weight distribution with each feet. Like, you can land, we learn to land in various different ways, like a bit heavy on the tail or a bit heavy on your heels or a bit heavy on your toes. But when you land like bang, weight central in the middle of your board, you're like, boom, that was the one.
Yeah.
Stomped.
So you feel like before you've even seen anything, you go, oh, I got it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the minute you leave the lip, you know. If not, it's a Scrabble. It's like putting the pieces of the puzzle back together to try and land on your feet. But obviously we don't do stuff that we can't do. It's well practiced and it's a skill that's acquired over years and years.
So do you feel that once you finish, I imagine you got this incredible buzz, like you're buzzing from it. Does it take a while to come down from that, or do you just want to go again?
It depends, contest days versus filming days. When you're filming, that's another side of snowboarding, which
Explain
I'm doing
that.
a bit more.
What do you mean by filming?
So backcountry, so off-piste, big mountain riding.
Okay.
You go out there to get the shot, and you go out, and if you nail it first go, you're like, okay, let's move on to the next one. Yeah. Job done, essentially.
Yeah.
But when you're in a park competitive environment, it's about consistency. So, you might have landed a new trick once, but once isn't enough to perfect it on the world stage. You've got to keep going. And that's quite hard because you land it once, you're like, sweet, done it, woo! But then you're like, oh God, really? To make this trick more accessible, I need to keep doing it. But the adrenaline rush you get from doing one trick is so much. It can wipe you for like a couple of hours without you even realizing. Like your legs are shaking and you're out of breath, and like the whole mental element of it consumes you. So it's then how you manage that and attack it again and keep going and
going. You're a qualified yoga teacher.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it for a while. How long have you been doing yoga for?
So probably since like 2015, 16.
So do you feel that's helped you sort of down-regulate yourself a bit? And
100%. It is. I was literally talking about this yesterday. It has been the bolt hold of the last few years of my career in holding not only my body but my mind together. It's like the one place where I feel like I can go and truly switch off or switch on if there's something on snow that needs to be worked on. I can also use that time as sort of mental practice to think through the motions, and I feel like yoga's helped me progress with my own movement to a point that it has assisted me through dark times of injury and also avoiding injury. Yeah, it's magic.
Yeah, I mean, it's helped me. It's helped a lot of people. That's so interesting. That stuff about flying upside down, and I just can't imagine, because I just literally I know it takes time to build to that level, but I've just I can't even consider it in my mind. Like you look at heights off like a diving board and things like that. Some people get real queasy, but you're throwing yourself in at its speed, and it's just like literally insane.
Yeah, I look at it and I'm like, wow, it's crazy, you know.
Yeah. So you're also into presenting as well. So you're going to be in and around the media a lot more now as well, and people are going to be looking out for you.
Yeah, most definitely. I've got a few exciting things coming up here and there. I started off last season with some work with Rebel TV. I'm going to be doing more with them this year.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a few other various things in the mix.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff with Chelsea Football Club and BT Sport,
cool.
which I'm really excited about, supporting the women's game. So that's really exciting. Actually, went and got my jersey sorted today.
Got your boots.
After the Summer of Sport and the Lionesses' success. I got heavily involved in that and absolutely loved it. And yeah, I'm essentially looking for my next big documentary project, because I just absolutely loved that wholesome experience of running in North Korea. It was crazy, and I'm looking for my next kick like that.
That's wicked. Where's the best place for people to find you?
The best place people can find me is probably on Instagram, hey, these days. So it's Aimee, AIMEE _ Fuller. I've also got a website, and then I do have my own fitness series on YouTube called Fuller Fitness. So we've got all sorts of mobility, we've got calisthenic style bodyweight movement, and I'm only going to be adding to that over the next few months. So do check it out.
Amazing. Aimee, thank you so much for your time today. It's been awesome. Like, it was something I definitely wanted to hear about, what you do. But no, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you.